All of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post. I am Ghadi Francis coming to you with a new episode of WION's weekly show where we bring you all things new from this region. Iran is facing pressure from the West because of its nuclear program. But Iran's allies, Russia and China, are standing up for Tehran. They are refusing Washington's unilateral sanctions. From national security threats to natural calamities, a lot is happening in West Asia. Before we dive in all that, let's take a quick look at what's making the headlines across the region. In our top story this week, we discuss Iran's resilience. Despite facing sanctions from its enemies, the Islamic Republic of Iran has always remained a power player in West Asia. Who are Iran's friends? And what routes is the Islamic Republic building for its economy? We tell you more in this report.
Undeterred by the opposition from global powers and regional rivals alike, Iran remains a key player in West Asia. Since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Tehran has faced a series of increasingly severe sanctions from the United States and its allies. These sanctions have targeted oil exports, financial institutions, and industries linked to its economic sector. After the US president returned to the White House in January, Washington reimposed its maximum pressure policy on Iran, with a promise to drive Tehran's oil exports to zero. Since Trump withdrew from Iran's nuclear deal in 2015, Washington has aimed to halt Tehran's production of nuclear fuel so that Iran does not develop nuclear weapons.
In a few moments, I will sign a presidential memorandum to begin reinstating U.S. nuclear sanctions on the Iranian regime. We will be instituting the highest level of economic sanction, Any nation that helps Iran in its quest for nuclear weapons could also be strongly sanctioned by the United States. America will not be held hostage to nuclear blackmail.
On March 20th, the US imposed additional sanctions on entities that traded Iran's petroleum. This month, United States imposed sanctions on 6 entities and 2 individuals based in Iran, the United Arab Emirates, and China for acquiring components that it alleges are connected to Iran's drone and ballistic missile programs. US actions are aimed at disrupting the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps aerospace industry's effort to procure equipment for Iran's military-industrial complex and drone program. Last year, Germany's financial regulatory authority, BaFin, published a report warning German companies against trading with Iran. The European Union also imposed sanctions on 7 Iranian prison and judicial officials on the grounds of human rights violations. Iran has responded to sanctions by developing its domestic industries and forging new trade relationships with countries like China and Russia. Western intelligence says Iran supplies its drones and ballistic missiles to Russia. Moscow developed deep military ties with Tehran since its full-scale invasion of Ukraine that began in February 2022. The two countries signed a 20-year strategic partnership treaty covering areas ranging from defense and technology to energy and trade.
The treaty that we signed today creates an additional, as I have already said, substantial foundation for building relations of a trustful nature.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin has also expressed interest in building new nuclear power plants in Iran. After the EU reduced gas imports from Russia, Moscow is seeking to sell its surplus energy fields to Tehran. If all goes according to plan, Russia could eventually supply up to 55 billion cubic meters of gas annually to Iran via Azerbaijan. Reports suggest China buys 90% of Iran's oil exports, which are mostly transshipped in waters of Malaysia and Singapore and rebranded as Malaysian. In the face of Western sanctions, China also lent a lifeline to Iran through its strategic partnership plan in 2021. The deal involves $400 billion worth of potential Chinese investments in the Iranian economy in 25 years. In return, China continues to receive a supply of heavily discounted Iranian oil, which increased from 818,000 barrels a day in 2021 to 1 million barrels in 2023. Both Russia and China have been openly vocal about America's unilateral sanctions on Iran and support Tehran's nuclear program.
Use of military force by Iran's adversaries in the context of the settlement of Iran's nuclear issue is illegal and unacceptable.
The implementation of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action has been disrupted by U.S. withdrawal. The United States should show political sincerity and return to the talks as soon as possible. Sanctions, pressure and coercion will lead to nowhere.
Over the years, Iran has circumvented sanctions by forming alliances with countries that are under Western pressure. But will the ongoing nuclear talks with Washington put an end to years of Iran's strained relationship with the US?
It has been over 6 weeks since any form of aid was allowed in Gaza. No food, no basic necessities, no medicine. Israel is forming a complete siege. And in the middle of all that, international humanitarian committees are warning Israel cannot use starvation as a weapon of war. Listen in.
The kids say, "Mom, we're hungry and we have nothing to give them."
I gave birth to my daughter during the war, and she is only a few days old now. We are suffering from dire conditions. There is no breastfeeding due to malnutrition among mothers, and we also face a shortage of infant formula.
Aid groups are raising new alarm over Israel's blockade of the war-ravaged Gaza Strip, where it has barred entry of all food and other goods for more than 6 weeks. Heads of 12 independent aid organizations issued a joint statement saying the humanitarian aid system in Gaza is facing total collapse. The bodies of 15 aid workers were unearthed from a mass grave in the war-torn enclave.
It's incredibly dangerous for aid workers and for ordinary civilians. We've seen, since the ceasefire collapsed, a number of aid workers be killed, including UN workers. We've seen humanitarian sites that have been targeted or struck in by Israeli forces.
Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz asserts that blocking aid is one of the central pressure tactics used against Hamas, which Israel accuses of siphoning off aid to maintain its rule. Qatar, a key mediator in the ceasefire talks, says Israel failed to abide by the last truce agreement in January.
I believe the tragic situation we are witnessing now in Gaza and the daily killing must stop. As you know, we reached an agreement several months ago, but unfortunately, Israel did not abide by this agreement.
Israel says that it converted 30% of Gaza into a buffer zone. But experts say Israel now controls 50% of the Gaza Strip.
The Office of Israel's Defense Minister tells the AP that the continued presence inside Syria and Lebanon will depend on ongoing security developments, but they say Israel is bent on remaining inside Gaza for the long term. This could complicate ongoing efforts by international mediators to strike a ceasefire. Hamas has said there will be no end to the war and no release of remaining hostages from Gaza without a full Israeli troop withdrawal from the territory.
Israel demands that Hamas releases more than hostages at the start of any new ceasefire and ultimately agree to disarm and leave the territory. Israel's defense minister said that even afterwards, Israel will continue to occupy large security zones inside Gaza. Palestinians seek an independent state in East Jerusalem, the West Bank and Gaza. These are the territories Israel captured in the 1967 Mideast War. International leaders widely agree on a two-state solution as the only way to resolve the conflict. Hamas has said it will only release the remaining 59 hostages held in Gaza, 24 of whom are believed to be alive, in exchange for a full Israeli withdrawal from the territory and a lasting ceasefire. However, Israel's vow to remain in Gaza that could further complicate slow-moving talks on a new ceasefire.
Around 40 days ago, a massacre took Syria by storm. Hundreds of people were slaughtered in their homes and villages for the simple accusation of being a Alawite or a Christian. Today, after over a month, people still fear for their lives. Alawites say this hasn't stopped. The revenge killings haven't stopped, and they are still in fear. Now multiple thousands have fled to Lebanon. We tell you more about that in this report.
A month after revenge attacks left hundreds of Alawite civilians dead, members of the Syrian religious minority are still living in fear. Reports say several people from the community have been killed in smaller attacks since the start of April. The Muslim minority group was a privileged minority under the rule of the Alawite Assad family. But since the fall of the Assad government last year, members are in fear of attacks by the country's Sunni majority. The new government promised to protect minority groups. But when a group of Assad loyalists attacked security forces near the coastal city of Latakia last month, it sparked a counter-offensive. That took a brutal toll on the coastal region's largely Alawite population.
What is the definition of freedom? You used to say that Bashar Assad did this or that. What have you done that is better than Bashar Assad? What have you done?
UK-based War Monitor, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, estimates that over 1,700 people, most of them civilians, were killed in March. The United Nations Refugee Agency says some 30,000 Alawite Syrians have fled to Lebanon over the past month. They are now scattered across 30 towns and villages in northern Lebanon. While there is little assistance for them in Lebanon, many don't feel safe enough to go back. Interim President Ahmad al-Shara has vowed to hold the perpetrators of recent attacks to justice and set up a committee to investigate the attacks. A few arrests have been reported. The committee says it is continuing its investigation in the coastal province, though they have not yet disclosed their findings. With the continued presence of Israeli forces at Syria's Mount Hermon and mass killings in the country, Syria's new regime faces the ultimate litmus test. Added to Syria's security crisis is Washington's decision to scale back its troops from the country. Reports suggest the troops who were present to prevent a resurgence of the Islamic State will now reduce its footprints from 2,000 to 1,000. US gave Syria a list in March of conditions to fulfill in exchange for partial sanctions relief, but the Trump administration has otherwise engaged little with the country's new rulers. Some White House officials have been keen to take a more hardline stance, pointing to the new Syrian leadership's former ties to Al-Qaeda as a reason to keep engagement to a minimum.
Jordan is one of the most stable countries in West Asia, but in the past week, the Arab nation carried on multiple arrests on national security threats. They say they avoided a major bomb in the country. We tell you more.
This week, Jordan foiled a terror plot allegedly linked to the Muslim Brotherhood. It arrested 16 people associated with the country's largest opposition group. Jordan says the accused were trained and financed in Lebanon and had plans to target sites in the kingdom with rockets and drones.
These cases included the manufacture of short-range rockets with a range of only 3 to 5 kilometers, which is a significant indicator, the possession of explosive materials and automatic weapons, the concealment of a rocket ready for use, a project to manufacture drones, in addition to the recruitment and training of people inside the kingdom and subjecting them to training abroad.
The Muslim Brotherhood denied affiliation with the alleged plotters. Jordanian intelligence unearthed a rocket manufacturing facility alongside a drone factory on the outskirts of its capital. The rockets were manufactured with a 3 to 5 kilometer range. The news of a potential attack on the kingdom brought forth mixed reactions from Jordanians.
I think in the future, if investigations prove that this act has leadership backing within the Islamic Action Front or the Muslim Brotherhood, and there is a duality in what's called the Islamic Action Front and the Muslim Brotherhood, then I think it's possible we could move towards dissolving or banning the Islamic Action Front or the Muslim Brotherhood in Jordan.
I don't think personally that the Muslim Brotherhood is involved in this act because their role has been well known since the 1950s. They've stood for national peace and societal security. As a citizen, I don't believe they would aim to sabotage the country, cause chaos, or anything of that sort. They have their political orientations, they support the Palestinian cause and the Arab nation, but destabilizing national security is something I believe is completely outside their intentions.
The Muslim Brotherhood is one of the Arab world's oldest and most influential Islamist movements. The group stated it had always pursued a peaceful political course and that its Jordan branch had operated legally for decades. Jordan has a large Palestinian population, and the Brotherhood has been accused of instigating anti-government street protests. The movement's political arm in Jordan is the Islamic Action Front. The front became the largest opposition grouping in parliament since last September elections. Over the last year, Jordan has foiled weapon smuggling attempts linked to pro-Iranian militias in Syria and Lebanon-based radical Palestinian groups. Some of the arms were bound for the neighboring Israeli-occupied West Bank, with many arrested Jordanians linked to Palestinian militants.
لكن السؤال بعد 25 سنة ليش أغير موقفي؟
A windstorm swept across several countries in the region, from Dubai to Iraq. Take a look. Yazidis are a small group indigenous to Mesopotamia. They are united by their religious and ethnic identity. Despite facing executions from the Islamic State for years, they remain resilient, and each year they gather in Lalish Temple in the Houk in Iraq to celebrate the Yazidi New Year. Take a look.
The Yazidi New Year falls on the first Wednesday of April, according to the Eastern Julian or Seleucid. The most important rituals take place at Lalish Temple in the mountains of Dohuk, north of the Kurdistan region, where Yazidis light candles and gather in prayer. Iraqi Yazidis celebrate their New Year at Lalish Temple, the Yazidis' holiest shrine, burning wick and participating in traditional rituals.
This holiday means a lot in the Yazidi religion. Firstly, it symbolizes peace, and it marks the start of the new year. According to the Yazidi religion, the earth was formed this month on Wednesday, so we celebrate it. And each color symbolizes something. Green means greenery in nature, red means roses, and every color during this holiday symbolizes something in nature. We call it the Feast of Nature.
Unlike other minority religions of the region, such as the Druze and the Alawites, it is not possible to convert to Yazidism, but only to be born into it. Yazidis believe their souls pass into successive bodily forms, and that gradual purification is possible through continual rebirth, making hell redundant. In remote areas of southeast Turkey, towards the Syrian and Iraqi borders, their once abandoned villages are starting to come back to life, with new houses being built by the communities themselves. 10 years ago, ISIS seized large swaths of Iraq and Syria and launched a targeted campaign against the Yazidis in northern Iraq. The self-proclaimed Islamic State of Iraq and Syria considered Yazidis, who are mostly of Kurdish descent, to be heretical devil worshippers. Shortly after, ISIS declared a caliphate. They attacked Sinjar, the northern Iraqi Yazidi homeland. At the time, 400,000 Yazidis fled their homes and tens of thousands took refuge on Mount Sinjar, where they remained stranded and hungry for weeks. Women and children were targeted for sexual slavery and trafficking, while the boys were trained to fight for ISIS. Thousands are yet to return to their homes. Despite centuries of persecution, the Yazidis have never abandoned their faith and continue to follow their community's unique path. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, always bringing you the most recent updates, news, and ground reports from the world's most volatile region. I am Radi Francis signing off from Lebanon. For more global news, keep on watching WION World is One.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at yowon.com.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Imagine a world where owning your dream asset is just a click away, where wealth is no longer exclusive to the few. Tokenization, the game changer, transforming assets into digital opportunities. A revolutionary technology opening doors to a new era of investment. Don't miss Token Money Magnet, a bold initiative by Culp Foundation. Only on WION World is One. To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Dive into the world of tokenization with me on Token Money Magnet, only on WION.
Technology redefines our future. Empower yourself with cutting-edge innovation. Discover, secure, dominate. Turn your assets